My name is Michael Reyes. I'm 57, born and raised in Florida, and I spent most of my life believing that if you worked hard, kept your word, and stayed out of other people's drama, you'd earn a quiet kind of peace. I didn't realize how quickly quiet can turn into vulnerable until my future son-in-law started asking questions that didn't belong at Sunday dinner. Not once, not twice. Every time he came down to the Keys, he asked about the same thing: where my waterfront property actually began and where it legally ended. Zach Bennett would stand on my back deck with a cup of coffee, staring past the mangroves toward the channel where the water shifted from pale green to deep blue, and he'd ask like it was casual small talk. "So where's the true line, Mike? Like your deed line? And the submerged land? Does the county control any of that?" The first time he asked, I assumed he was just curious. City people come down here and think the ocean is one big public park. The second time, I told myself he was trying to learn. By the sixth time, I felt something tighten in my gut, the way it does when you hear the same strange note in a song and you can't unhear it. My daughter Sophia laughed it off at first. "Dad, he's an attorney," she said. "He's wired to ask questions." Sophia has my late wife's warmth and my stubbornness, which means she can see the best in people and hold on to it longer than she should. Her mother, Marisol, was like that too. Marisol could look at a storm rolling in and still talk about how the rain would help the hibiscus. She died 4 years ago, and the Keys felt quieter than I ever thought they could. After the funeral, I kept the marina running because routine was the only thing that kept me upright. I own a small place in Islamorada, nothing fancy, just a bait shop, a few slips, and a weathered house that sits back from the water under an old gumbo limbo tree. I bought it in 2002 when the market was calm and nobody was pretending every dock was a luxury experience. Back then, it was a business. Now, with coastal land shrinking and developers sniffing around anything with a seawall, it's a target. I get letters in the mail that look polite but smell like blood in the water. Offers to partner, to maximize, to unlock value. I toss them in the trash. I didn't build this place to unlock it. I built it because my father taught me that work should mean something you can point to at the end of the day. Sophia grew up here, barefoot and sunburned, helping her mother sell key lime pie slices to tourists and learning the names of the fish before she learned the names of most presidents. When she left for college in Miami, I thought she'd never come back. Then Marisol got sick, and Sophia came home every other weekend, sitting by her mother's bed, reading out loud, brushing her hair, doing the quiet work of love. After Marisol passed, Sophia still came down, worried I'd become one of those men who slowly fades into his own loneliness. That's why, when she met Zach and her face started glowing again, I was grateful. I met Zach 8 months ago at a holiday party Sophia dragged me to in Miami. He was 35, clean-cut, confident, the kind of guy who laughs at the right moments and makes eye contact like he's counting points. He told me he did estate planning and wealth protection at a firm downtown. He shook my hand, complimented my daughter, and called Marisol a beautiful name, with a respectful tone that made Sophia squeeze his arm. He looked like a man who knew how to be whatever you needed him to be. The engagement happened fast. 4 months in, Zach proposed during a weekend trip to Charleston. Sophia called me from the sidewalk outside a restaurant, breathless, crying, holding the phone up so I could hear people cheering in the background. I said all the father things. "I'm happy for you. He seems like a good man. Your mom would be smiling." And I meant it. I wanted it to be true. Sophia wanted the wedding here, at the marina, under the same sunset Marisol used to watch from the dock. She hired a planner. She booked a caterer from Key Largo. Invitations went out to 200 people, most of them flying in from Miami, Tampa, Atlanta, and up the East Coast. Zach was all in. He helped pick the band. He talked about lighting. He suggested renting out additional slips for guests who wanted to arrive by boat. And every time he visited, every time he walked along the seawall like he was admiring the view, he found a way back to that question. So your property line, does it run to the water's edge or is there a setback? Do you own the dock permits or does the business own them? Is the marina under your personal name or an LLC? One Saturday in late July, he pointed across the channel toward a neighboring stretch of undeveloped mangrove and said, "If someone wanted to extend a dock out there, who decides? The county? The state? You?" Sophia elbowed him playfully and told him to stop talking like he was at work. He laughed and said, "Sorry, I just love learning this stuff." But I had spent 28 years as a project manager before taking over the marina full-time, and I learned something in that career. People who ask the same question in different words are not curious. They're measuring. That night, after Zach and Sophia drove back to Miami, I poured myself iced tea and sat at the kitchen table where Marisol used to cut limes. I pulled out the thick folder of property documents that lived in the bottom drawer. Deeds, surveys, permits, old correspondence with the county. Everything I'd kept, because paperwork is the only thing that can fight a confident liar. My property is about 11 acres, which doesn't sound like much until you realize it's on the water, in a place where the ocean is eating the shoreline. The house and marina are on the same parcel, purchased for $610,000 in 2002. Today, the land alone could sell for several million, maybe more if someone wanted to turn it into a boutique hotel with a saltwater experience. Add the business revenue, the permits, the slips, and the fact that my seawall is grandfathered under old rules, and you're not talking about a normal retirement asset. You're talking about a prize. Sophia didn't know the numbers. She knew we were comfortable. She knew I didn't worry about bills. She didn't know that Marisol and I kept life simple on purpose. After watching her cousin's family fight like wolves over a condo in Boca, Marisol once told me, "If we ever get lucky, keep it quiet." So I did. I drove a 10-year-old Ford truck. I wore the same boat shoes until they split. I paid cash for used equipment and fixed it myself. The truth sat in accounts Sophia never asked about, partly because she respected my privacy, partly because she assumed if I was fine, there was nothing to discuss. Zach, on the other hand, kept circling the topic like a shark that smells something under the surface. The next morning I called my attorney, Diane Caldwell, who had handled my permits and business paperwork for years. Diane is the kind of woman who wears simple suits and speaks in clear sentences that make you feel foolish for trying to exaggerate. "Diane," I said, "I need you to look into someone for me." She paused. "This about Sophia's fiancé?" "Just a precaution," I said. "He's asking questions that don't feel like normal future son-in-law questions." Diane sighed like she'd heard this story before. "I can run a background check. Licenses, court records, business filings. But Mike, if you're worried, you should talk to Sophia." "Not until I know I'm not being paranoid," I said. "I don't want to poison her happiness on a gut feeling." "Your gut has kept you alive in hurricane season," Diane said. "Don't ignore it. But fine. Give me his full name and date of birth." 3 days later, Diane called and said, "Come to my office." Not "call me back," not "I found nothing." Come. That's when you know something shifted. Her office in Key Largo smells like paper and coffee and old air conditioning. She closed the door and slid a folder across her desk. Zachary Bennett is who he says he is, she said. Licensed attorney, active status, works at Bennett and Sloan in Miami. No criminal record, no obvious lawsuits. I exhaled, relief and embarrassment mixing together. So I'm just an overprotective dad, I said. Diane lifted a finger. Not so fast. She flipped to a second set of pages. I asked for deeper digging, not just court records, patterns. And Mike. Zach has been engaged before. I frowned. He told Sophia he had one serious relationship in his 20s. Diane didn't smile. He's been engaged 3 times in the past 6 years, each time to a woman from a family with significant assets. Each engagement ended quickly, right after he gained access to some kind of financial information. My throat went dry. Diane read the names. Lindsay Porter. Her father owned commercial property in Broward County. Engagement lasted 5 months. Ended 2 weeks after Zach attended a meeting with their CPA about the family trust. She turned the page. Natalie Klein. Family had a beachfront condo portfolio. Engagement lasted 4 months. Ended right after a deed change was filed, adding Natalie's name to an LLC. Zach's name never appeared, but the paperwork he drafted was used. Diane tapped the last page. Rachel Monroe. Her mother ran a medical practice. Engagement lasted 3 months. Ended right after Zach was granted temporary access to bank statements for budgeting. No charges, no lawsuits, just silence. Why didn't anyone sue? I asked, anger rising like heat. Diane's eyes were tired. Because families like that don't sue unless they have to. They pay for quiet. They sign agreements. They move on. And Zach is careful. He doesn't take money in a way that looks like theft. He positions himself so the law sees it as shared decisions and misunderstandings. I gripped the folder. Sophia doesn't have wealth, I said. She's got a good job, but she's not a trust fund kid. Diane nodded. Sophia is your only child. You own a waterfront business. If Zach believes she stands to inherit, he could be playing a long game. And if he's already asking about boundaries and permits, he's not imagining a future on this dock. He's imagining what he can sell. I sat there for a long time, the ceiling fan clicking softly. What do I do? I finally asked. Diane leaned forward. You need to talk to Sophia, she said. But you need to do it carefully, with facts. Not, I don't like him. Not, I have a bad feeling. If you accuse him without proof, you might push Sophia closer to him. And if I say nothing, I said, I might watch my daughter marry a man who's running a play. Diane's voice softened. Then we get proof. How? I asked. Legally, she said, firm. We don't do anything stupid. No breaking into phones, no shady stunts. We gather what we can through public records, through consent, through a professional investigator, and we protect you and Sophia regardless. That afternoon, Zach texted me a smiling selfie from a Miami coffee shop with the caption, "Thinking about the keys. Can't wait to be family." I stared at it and felt nothing but the cold truth. Men like Zach don't want family. They want access. The next weekend, Zach drove down again. He brought a bottle of wine and a box of pastries like he was playing a role. We sat on the deck, and the sun turned the water bronze. Sophia talked about flowers and playlists. Zach listened politely, then leaned toward me with that concerned expression he wore like a badge. "Mike," he said, "can I ask you something? It's sensitive." Sophia rolled her eyes in a loving way. "Here we go," she teased. Zach laughed. I can't help it, he said. Then he looked at me. Have you thought about setting up a trust? Not just for taxes, but to make sure Sophia is protected. With a property like this, you could save a lot, and you'd avoid probate headaches. My heart hammered, but I kept my face calm. I have a will, I said. Wills are good, Zach said, but trusts are better, especially if something happens unexpectedly. And with the business, a marina is a lot for one person. Long-term planning matters? Something happens unexpectedly, I repeated. Zach smiled like he'd offered me a mint. You know what I mean. Health, accidents, hurricanes, having a plan. Sophia reached for his hand. Dad, he's just trying to help, she said. I know, I replied, forcing my voice steady. Zach, I'll think about it. Zach's eyes brightened just a fraction. Great, he said. I'd be happy to draft options, no charge. I mean, I'm going to be your son-in-law. That night, after they left, I stood by the seawall and watched a tarpon roll in the dark water. I could have confronted Sophia. I could have dropped the folder on the table and told her fiancé was a pattern in a suit. But I also knew Sophia. If I attacked Zach, she might defend him out of pride. And pride is a powerful glue. I needed her to see what I saw, without feeling like I was trying to control her life. So I did what Diane suggested. I hired a licensed private investigator named Angela Kim. Angela was sharp, quiet, and older than she looked, with eyes that missed nothing. I don't do drama, she told me during our first meeting. I do facts. That's exactly what I need, I said. What can you find? Angela made a list on a legal pad. Public filings, professional contacts, social circles, patterns, and I can interview people who knew him, if they'll talk. Sometimes people will say more to a stranger than they'll ever say to an ex. Can you do it quickly? I asked. She nodded once. Before the wedding? She said. But you need to be ready for what you find. People who play long games don't panic unless they're cornered. 2 weeks passed. Wedding preparations rolled forward like a train. Sophia was glowing. She texted me photos of her dress fittings. Zach sent me cheerful updates about seating charts. I smiled, nodded, played the supportive father because I didn't want to tip my hand. Then Angela called me on a Monday night. Mike, she said, I found your missing puzzle piece. I drove to her office in Homestead, heart pounding harder with every mile. Angela spread out papers and screenshots on a table. Zach has a friend, she said, tapping a photo of a man in a polo shirt outside a downtown bar. Name's Landon Lance Pierce. Not a lawyer, not licensed. Runs a consulting LLC that buys distressed property contracts and flips them. He's been in and out of small civil trouble, nothing major, but he's the kind of guy who understands scams and calls them strategy. What does that have to do with Zach? I asked. Angela slid over a printed email chain. This, she said. The emails were between Zach and Lance, sent from a burner address Zach used for side projects. Diane had warned me these men always have a side channel. In the emails, Zach used words that made my skin crawl. Timing, access, control. He talked about getting in before probate, about guardianship options, about the marina permits being the real value. He talked about me like I was a broken boat he planned to tow. It gets worse, Angela said quietly. She played a short audio clip on her laptop. Zach's voice, calm and amused. He's stubborn, but he's alone. Once I'm family, I can push the planning angle. If he resists, we frame it as concern. People love concern. If he slips, if he gets confused, even for a week, that's enough to petition a court. Then everything becomes for his safety. Lance laughed in the background and said, "And Sophia?" Zach replied, "Sophia's sweet. She'll believe what she wants to believe. We keep her busy with the wedding, then we do the paperwork." I sat there frozen, hearing my daughter described like a tool. Angela paused the recording. "This audio was provided by a cooperating witness," she said carefully. "It's legally obtained. No tricks, no illegal devices." My hands clenched. "So it's real," I whispered. "It's real," Angela confirmed, "and it's enough to show intent." I drove home in the dark, the Keys Highway stretching like a ribbon over black water. My mind kept repeating one sentence: "We do the paperwork." That's how predators operate now. Not with knives, with forms. The next morning, I met Diane at her office and played her the audio. She listened without interrupting, then said, "Okay, we move." "Police?" I asked. Diane nodded. "We can involve law enforcement, yes, but we also need Sophia to hear the truth from a source she trusts, or she'll spend years wondering if she overreacted." "How do we do that without humiliating her?" I asked. Diane leaned back. "We set a meeting," she said. "A family planning meeting. You tell Zach you're open to discussing a trust, but you want it done properly, with your attorney present and Sophia present. We record the meeting openly for minutes. If Zach thinks he's winning, he'll talk. Men like him always talk when they smell control." "And if he stays careful?" I asked. Diane's eyes narrowed. "Then we already have enough to stop the wedding privately. But I suspect he won't stay careful. He's been asking for access for weeks. The closer the wedding gets, the more he'll push." That night I called Sophia. "Sweetheart," I said, "I want us to sit down this weekend, me, you, and Zach, with my attorney. Nothing scary, just planning. Your mom would want things clean." Sophia sounded relieved. "Dad, that's actually great," she said. "Zach keeps saying it's important, and I didn't want to pressure you." "No pressure," I said gently. "Just clarity." The meeting was set for Saturday morning at my house, at the big dining table where Marisol used to place conch shells in a bowl like they were treasures. Zach arrived in a crisp button-down shirt, carrying a leather folder, smiling like he owned the room. Diane sat across from him with a notepad. Sophia sat beside Zach, holding his hand. I told everyone, plainly, "I'm recording this meeting for my notes, so I don't forget anything." Diane nodded in agreement. Sophia shrugged like it was normal. Zach smiled wider. "Great idea," he said. "Transparency is everything." Diane began with neutral questions. "Mike owns the marina and residence," she said. "He has a will. He wants to ensure Sophia is protected." "What are your thoughts, Zach?" Zach leaned forward, confident. "First, we establish a revocable trust," he said. "Then we move the property into it. Sophia becomes the beneficiary. I can serve as co-trustee or successor trustee to help manage, since she lives in Miami." Diane's pen paused. "Why would you be co-trustee?" she asked. Zach didn't flinch. "Because I'll be family," he said, "and because Sophia will have a lot on her plate. The marina is complex. Permits, insurance, environmental compliance. I can handle the paperwork while she focuses on her career." Sophia squeezed his hand, impressed. Diane kept her voice calm. "So you'd have authority to manage assets?" "Only if Mike wants that," Zach said smoothly. "But it's responsible. We can also do a durable power of attorney as a backup, in case something happens." "Something happens," Diane repeated. Zach nodded. "Health issues, accidents, a storm, elder care planning. You don't want chaos. I watched Sophia's face. She looked slightly uneasy now, like she was hearing the word accident differently. Diane asked, "And if Mike says no to a power of attorney?" Zach shrugged in a careful way. "Then we revisit later," he said. "But I'd encourage him. It protects everyone." Diane flipped a page. "See, Mike also wants to preserve the marina's legacy," she said. "He's not interested in selling." Zach smiled. "Of course," he said, "and that's admirable. But a trust can be structured to allow flexibility. If Sophia ever decides to sell parcels or lease the slips, she should be able to. Holding land for sentimental reasons can be expensive." I felt anger flare, but I stayed steady. "Zach," I said, "you've asked me about the property line a lot. Why?" He didn't miss a beat. "Because boundaries matter," he said. "Especially with waterfront. There are easements, setbacks. Sometimes the state owns submerged lands. Developers know the tricks. I want to make sure Sophia isn't taken advantage of." Diane's eyes flicked to me just a fraction. She asked, "Developers like who?" Zach spread his hands. "Anyone," he said. "People circle these properties. If you're not careful, you lose value." Sophia finally spoke. "Zach," she said softly, "why are we talking about selling? Dad doesn't want to sell." Zach turned toward her, smile still there but tighter. "I'm not talking about selling now," he said. "I'm talking about options. That's what planning is." Diane leaned in. "Let's talk about options then," she said. "If Mike refused to change anything, no trust changes, no power of attorney, what would you do?" Zach laughed lightly. "Nothing," he said. "He has the right to do what he wants." Diane's voice stayed neutral. "And if Mike became ill and couldn't manage his affairs?" Zach's eyes sharpened. "Then someone would need to step in," he said. "A spouse, a child, a court-appointed guardian? It depends." Diane asked, "Would you ever petition a court?" Zach hesitated, just a breath, then said, "If it was necessary for his safety, yes. Courts exist for that." Sophia's fingers loosened around his. I could see it. Diane said, "And how would you convince the court it was necessary?" Zach smiled, like he was teaching. "Medical evaluations," he said. "Statements. Evidence of mismanagement. If someone is at risk, you show that." The room felt colder. Diane asked, "What counts as mismanagement?" Zach shrugged. "Ignoring financial realities," he said. "Not maintaining the property properly, refusing reasonable planning, things like that." I looked at Sophia. Her face was pale. Zach noticed and softened his tone. "Baby," he said, "this is hypothetical. I'm just explaining." Sophia didn't speak. Diane closed her notebook. "Thank you," she said. "That gives us a clear picture." Zach blinked. "Already?" he asked. "I have more documents." Diane smiled politely. "Before we look at documents, we need to address something," she said. Zach's posture tightened. "What?" Diane slid a printed packet across the table. "This," she said. Zach glanced down. His face changed. It wasn't dramatic. It was a tiny shift, like someone who has been performing suddenly sees the curtain catch on fire. He recognized his own words. The emails, the phrases, the structure. Sophia leaned forward and read one line out loud, her voice trembling. "We keep her busy with the wedding, then we do the paperwork." She looked up at Zach. "What is this?" Zach's mouth opened, then closed. "That's not what it looks like," he said automatically. Diane's voice hardened. "It's exactly what it looks like," she said. "And there's more." Angela stepped in from the hallway. Sophia jumped, surprised. She hadn't known Angela would be there. "Sophia," I said gently. I'm sorry. I needed you safe. Angela placed a small recorder on the table and pressed play. Zach's voice filled my dining room again. He's stubborn, but he's alone. Petition a court. For his safety. Sophia covered her mouth with her hand. Her eyes filled with tears. Zach stood up fast. This is illegal, he snapped. This is entrapment. This is a setup. Diane stood too. The evidence was legally obtained, she said. And this meeting is being recorded with your knowledge. Sit down. Zach looked at Sophia, switching tactics. His voice softened. Sophia, he said, your dad is paranoid. He hates me. He's trying to control you. Sophia's voice came out small. Did you say I was sweet and would believe what I want to believe? Zach's face flickered. I didn't mean... Sophia stood up, hands shaking. You called my dad alone, she said, tears spilling now. You talked about getting a court to take his rights away. You talked about paperwork like it's a weapon. Zach tried to reach for her. Soft, please. She stepped back. Don't touch me, she said, louder now. Diane nodded toward the front door. Two men stepped inside. Deputy Torres from the Monroe County Sheriff's Office and a second officer in plain clothes. Diane had warned me they might need to move quickly if Zach tried to bolt. Deputy Torres spoke calmly. Zachary Bennett? He asked. Zach's eyes went wide. What is this? He demanded. The other officer said, You're being detained for questioning regarding attempted exploitation and conspiracy. We have a warrant for your devices. Zach's face went red. This is insane, he shouted. I haven't done anything. I haven't taken anything. This is a family dispute. Sophia's voice cracked, but it was steady. You took my wedding fund, she said, and you plan to take my dad's life apart with paperwork. Zach tried to look wounded. I was helping, he insisted. I was planning. Deputy Torres stepped closer and gently took Zach's arms behind his back. Sir, he said, you can explain it downtown. Zach glared at me as they walked him out. You just ruined your daughter's happiness, he hissed. I didn't raise my voice. You tried to build your happiness on my daughter's trust, I said. That's not happiness. That's theft. When the door shut, the house went silent except for Sophia's sobs. She slid down onto a chair like her legs forgot how to work. I moved to her, slow, careful, and put my arms around her the way I did when she was a kid and hurricanes made her cry. I'm so sorry, she whispered into my shoulder. I didn't see it. You're not stupid, I said. You're loving. That's not a flaw. It's just something predators look for. Sophia pulled back and wiped her face. How long did you know? She asked. I looked at the mangrove shadows moving outside the window. I suspected when he kept asking about boundaries, I admitted. I checked. I waited for proof. I didn't want to take your choice away. Sophia's eyes were full of hurt and gratitude at the same time. I wish Mom was here, she whispered. The sentence hit me like a wave. Me too, I said. After the officers left, Diane stayed. Angela stayed. We sat at the table with cold coffee and wedding paperwork still spread out like an open wound. Sophia stared at the invitations and the seating chart and the folder labeled Sophia and Zach. What happens now? She asked. Diane's tone softened again, professional but kind. The state attorney will decide charges, she said. At minimum, there's evidence of attempted exploitation and conspiracy. There are financial issues. There may be ethics charges with the Bar Association. But Sophia, the most immediate thing is you're safe and your assets are protected. Sophia looked up sharply. My assets? Diane nodded toward me. Mike, she said, now is the time. I took a breath. Soph, I said, your mom and I set up protections years ago. The marina is in a trust. Not because I didn't trust you, because I don't trust people who might attach themselves to you. Sophia blinked. Wait, she said. You already had a trust? I nodded. A long time ago, I said. It keeps the property protected. No spouse can touch it without your explicit consent. Not through divorce, not through a court trick. If you ever inherit it, it's yours. Only yours. Sophia stared at me, stunned. Dad, she whispered, why didn't you tell me? I rubbed my thumb over her knuckles. Because I wanted you to grow up normal, I said. I wanted you to choose people who love you, not what you might one day own. And because money turns every relationship into a question mark if you let it. Sophia swallowed hard. How much is it? She asked quietly. I hesitated, then said the truth. Enough that the wrong person would see you as a plan, I said. And Zach did. Sophia let out a shaky laugh that sounded more like a sob. So all those questions about the property line were never about learning, I said. They were about measuring. The next few hours were practical chaos. Sophia called the planner and canceled. She called the caterer. She texted guests a short message. Wedding postponed due to a serious issue. Please don't travel. Some people replied with hearts. Some replied with nosy questions. Sophia didn't answer. She turned off her phone and let herself breathe for the first time since the folder hit the table. 2 days later, Sophia came back down to the marina alone. She walked the dock at sunset, barefoot, like she used to. I feel like an idiot, she said, staring at the water. He said all the right things. He made me feel safe. That's how it works, I told her. The wrong person doesn't show up wearing a sign. They show up wearing your favorite version of love. Sophia nodded slowly. I keep replaying everything, she said. All the times he steered conversations toward money. All the times he asked about permits like it was romantic. She looked at me. Dad, did he really think he could take you to court? I chose my words carefully. He thought he could build a story, I said. A story where you and he were concerned, and I was stubborn, and the court would protect me by giving him control. That's why we document. That's why we plan. That's why we don't sign things just because someone smiles. Sophia leaned against the railing. What if you hadn't checked? She asked softly. I stared out at the channel. Then we'd be fighting in a different timeline, I said. One where you're married, and he's already got his hands on documents, and you're trying to prove your own husband isn't helping. It's harder then. Sophia's voice was quiet. Thank you, she said. I didn't pretend I was fine. I'd do it 1,000 times, I said. I'd be the bad guy in every story if it keeps you safe. Weeks passed. The Bar Association opened an investigation. Diane filed complaints with exhibits. The sheriff's office followed up. Zach's firm put him on leave, then terminated him. Lance Pierce, the friend, was questioned too. I didn't celebrate any of it. I just watched Sophia heal in slow, uneven steps. She went to therapy. She slept at the marina house for a while, letting the ocean do what it always does. Remind you that time keeps moving, whether you're ready or not. One evening, we sat on the deck, and Sophia asked, Dad, do you regret not selling when the offers came? I looked at the lights bobbing on the water, the boats rocking gently like sleepy animals. No, I said. This place is your mom. It's her laugh in the bait shop. It's her hands handing tourists napkins. It's her dream. Money can't replace that. Sophia nodded. But money can attract wolves, she said. I smiled sadly. Yes, I said. So we build fences that wolves can't climb. Paper fences, legal fences, and we keep the real fence inside us, the one that tells us when something feels off. Sophia was quiet for a moment, then said, I used to think love meant never doubting someone. I shook my head. Love means caring enough to see the truth, I said, and choosing yourself when the truth is ugly. The next spring, Sophia started a conservation project with a local nonprofit, restoring mangrove lines along vulnerable shore. She named one of the volunteer days after her mother. Marisol's Mangroves, the sign read. People came. They planted. They laughed. The marina stayed open. The sun still set red over the channel, and Zach Bennett became a story we told only when it mattered, as a warning, not a wound. On the 1-year anniversary of the canceled wedding, Sophia stood by the seawall and asked me, Dad, do you ever get tired of protecting? I looked at her and thought of Marisol's quiet strength, the way she believed in gardens instead of gold. No, I said, because protection is just love with a backbone. Sophia smiled, small but real. I love you, she said. I love you too, I replied. And the water moved beside us, endless and honest, proving something I'd learned the hard way. The most valuable line on any property isn't the one on the survey. It's the line you draw when someone tries to cross into your life with a smile and a plan.